Hey guys, it's Cassera, and today I'm going to be ranking the 2019 new book releases. My 2019 reading recap. If you missed the last video in the series, I will link it up in the cards for you. Additionally, links to all the videos in the series will be available in the description as they come out. In this video, I'm going to be ranking all the new releases that I read in 2019. So obviously, I didn't read every book that came out in 2019, but I did read a good number of them. There are a total of 31 books on this list, and that is a lot to go through. So I won't be talking too much about each of the books on this list. I'll mostly just be giving you guys like some quick thoughts that I had on each book. If you want more information on these books, definitely check out my other recap videos because I go way more in depth in those videos. Because this video, I'm just gonna be basically taking all of the new releases that I read in 2019 and ranking them from my lowest rated book to my highest rated book. You might notice that some of the star ratings aren't quite in order, and that's because the star rating that I give a book like on Goodreads or something like that will be based on my expectations of that book. So if I expect the book to be really great and it disappoints me, it's gonna probably have a lower star rating than a book that I don't expect as much from but meets my expectations. And that's just a personal thing with me because I tend to really love fantasy, but I'm a lot harder on fantasy books than I am on, say, romance books. I don't expect much from my romance books, but I do enjoy them when I'm reading them. So I'm not going to give them a 2-star rating when I enjoyed the book. So the star ratings won't be like in order from lowest to highest, but they should be pretty close, and I'm going to be ranking them based on how much I liked the book. So I'm going to start out with my least favorite new releases of the year and work my way up to my favorite. So my least favorite new release of 2019 was City in the Middle of the Night by Charlie Jane Anders. This is a sci-fi book that's set in a tidally locked planet, which means one side of the planet always faces towards the sun, one always faces away from the sun. I've always wanted to read a book that is set in a world like this, but I just found it very, very boring, and I really just didn't enjoy it, so I ended up giving this one 2.5 stars. The next book on this list is The Unkindest Tie by Shonda McGuire. This is another one that I had really high hopes for because Shonda McGuire is an author that I wanted to read more of, but I honestly just think her urban fantasy is not for me. It's just not my style of book, so I found it incredibly boring at times, and I just didn't like the way it was written, so I ended up giving that one at 2.5 stars as well. The next book on this list is Black Leopard, Red Wolf by Marlon James. It makes me really sad that this book is so low down on the list because it was one of my most anticipated releases for 2019. Like, what makes it even more sad about it is because it's so well written. I just didn't like the content of the book. Even though I love the writing and the audiobook is so well produced, the reading experience was fantastic, but I just really didn't like the content, so I ended up giving the book 3 stars. The next book on this list is Sorcery of Thorns by Margaret Rogerson. This is another one that I had really, really high hopes for that just kind of let me down. I love the concept of this book because it's about an orphan who grows up in a library and then is pulled into this quest that is about magical libraries, which is fantastic. But like, I just didn't really like the way the atmosphere really cut the more darker, deeper meanings in this book because it was very much of a lighter, more joking atmosphere that just didn't work for me. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars as well. The next book on this list is Priority of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This book I had really hoped to like just because it's a political high fantasy with heavy world building, and it's about dragons, which I was really, really excited for. But honestly, I felt like it was quite long for what the plot was. A lot of the situations just didn't work for me as well as I wanted it to, and I didn't like the characters as much as I wanted it to, so I ended up giving this one 3.5 stars. The next book on this list is The Throne of Five Winds by S.C. Emmett. So this book is also a very political high fantasy book that I was really, really excited for. It's about a character who is the lady-in-waiting to a princess who is basically in arranged marriage to the prince of another kingdom because their kingdom has been conquered by that other kingdom, and it is very much like a court politics sort of fantasy book, which I love the idea of it, but I just felt like it was really slow and the politics didn't quite live up to what I was hoping them to live up to. So I ended up giving that one 3.75 stars. The next book on this list is A Full Circle by Susan Seddon. So this book is a psychological thriller that is kind of about domestic abuse, but like definitely has some like really interesting plot twists. I definitely really enjoyed this book and I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book on this list is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. This is another book that I had really high hopes for that didn't quite live up to it. It's definitely a well-written psychological thriller. It follows a psychologist who has a patient who is silent after she stabbed her husband, which is just a really interesting concept, but I didn't really like the way the twist is done at the end, so I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So the next book on this list is The Bride Twist by Helen Huang, which is a romance novel that was just fun and whimsical, and I enjoyed it. I don't remember that much about it other than it has really good representation, and I believe it was about arranged marriages because it was about a character who was brought over to the United States for an arranged marriage, which was just like an interesting situation, so I enjoyed it and I ended up giving that one 4 stars as well. So the next book on this list is Tunnel of Bones by Victoria Schwab. So this book is the sequel to City of Ghosts, so it follows a character who can see ghosts and her parents are ghost hunters even though they can't see ghosts, and she has a best friend who is a ghost. I just really enjoyed this book. It's a fun middle grade series that I enjoy reading, so I ended up giving this one 4 stars. The next book on this list is We Hunt the Flame by Hafsa Faisal. This book is a YA high fantasy book in which the main character can go into this forest, and she's like the only one who can go into this forest to go hunting, but she's pulled into a quest to save her people. This was a book that I got in Owl Crate, and I really enjoyed this book a lot more than I was expecting to, and I'm definitely excited for the next book in this series, which is coming out next year, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars as well. The next book on this list is Realm of Nights by Jennifer Ann Davis. This book completely surprised me when I read it. It's definitely a book that I think I rated higher than it necessarily deserves, but I read this book in like one sitting. It was super fast paced. I love how fast this book was. It is definitely a very romance heavy YA book, but it was just what I needed at the time and got me out of a reading slump, so I appreciate it for what it was, and I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. The next book on this list is The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. This book really surprised me because it has very interesting world building because it's about a society that is set in this archipelagos, which is like a group of islands, and they're at war constantly, and there's just tons of dangers in the ocean around them, and they sail in these ships made of bones of these basically dragons. They call them Arachesians, but they're like water dragons basically. It's a really interesting world and had an interesting plot, and I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. The next book on this list is Call It What You Want by Bridget Kemmerer. So this is a YA contemporary, which the main plot of it is basically a romance plot. Bridget Kemmerer is one of those authors that I love the way that she writes her YA contemporary books. I really enjoy them. They get pretty dark at times, especially emotionally, and I really enjoyed this one as well, and I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. The next book on this list is The Rest of the Story by Sarah Dessen. This book I actually don't remember very much about, but again, it's a YA contemporary romance that I enjoyed when I was reading it, and I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars as well. The next book on this list is Pilgrimage of Swords by Anthony Ryan. This book really caught me by surprise because it's a novella. Like, it's a really short book. It's only like 100 pages, but like it has so much world building, and I felt like I got such a good picture of the characters and everything that was happening in this book that I really enjoyed it. It's about a character who takes the name of Pilgrim at the beginning of the story, who's going on a pilgrimage to pray to a mad god, which is just an interesting concept, and I'm definitely excited to see like if there's a series that comes out of it, because it seems like it's the prequel novella of a new series, which makes me excited, and I ended up giving this one 4 stars. So the next book on this list is The Winter of Witch by Catherine Arden. So this is the 3rd book in the Winter Night trilogy, which is just a really beautifully written atmospheric fantasy series that I really enjoy. It's the finale. It has a really good plot, and I loved everything about this book, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. The next book on this list is Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence, which is the 3rd book in the Book of the Ancestor trilogy. The Book of the Ancestor trilogy is fantastic. It's about basically assassin nuns, and I love the finale of it. It was really well done, and I ended up giving it 4.5 stars. The next book on this list is In an Absent Dream by Shauna McGuire. This is the 4th book in the Wayward Children series. This is a series about children who get sent to other worlds, and it's the worlds that they're supposed to be in. In this book, it follows a character named Lundy who is sent to the Goblin Market, and I absolutely love the world building in this book. I love the Goblin Market. It's probably one of my favorite worlds in the entire series, and I really enjoyed this, and I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. The next book on this list is The Starless II by Erin Morgenstern. This is about a character named Zachary Azar Rollins who finds this book in the library that has this story from when he was a child, so he kind of is investigating reading this. It's a very atmospheric book, and I love the writing in this book. It has some really interesting like little stories from the books that are in this book, and it was just such a beautiful book to read, and I absolutely loved it, and I gave it 4.75 stars. The next book on this list is Starsight by Brandon Sanderson. This is the sequel to Skyward, and this is following the character named Spencer after all of the events that happen in Skyward. This is set in a world in which the humans are kind of being detained on this planet called Detritus, and they're constantly at war with the people who are detaining them, which are the Krell. Wonderful, wonderful world building. Absolutely love it, and I love the characters in this book, and I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. The next book on this list is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So this book is a historical record of the band Daisy Jones and the Six, all of like the rock and roll madness that they go through. It has a really great audiobook that I highly recommend because this book is told through interviews. I think is the perfect way to get this book, but I did get the physical copy also because obviously I wanted it because it's fantastic, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars. The next book on this list is A Curse So Dark and Lonely by Bridget Kemmerer. So this book is a modern Beauty and the Beast retelling. It has some good representation. It's definitely a really fast-paced and fun book, and I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving this one 4.5 stars. The next book on this list is Recursion by Blake Crouch. This book is kind of about time travel and ending up living the same life over and over again, and I love the way the consequences of the technology are done in this book. It has some epic proportions in a way that I wasn't expecting. It definitely blew me out of the water. I absolutely loved it, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars. Now we're getting into my top 5 of the year, and in 5th place we have The Burning White by Brent Weeks. I loved this book so much. This series is one that has really taken off. It's one of my favorite series of all time. I really loved it, and the ending to The Burning White was so well done. I really loved it, especially the second half of this book was fantastic. I loved every second of it, and I ended up giving it 4.75 stars. In 4th place, we have The Toll by Niels Justerman. This is the final book in the Arc of Scythe trilogy, which I read entirely this year, and it is a fantastic series. This series is set in a world in which artificial intelligence has basically have unlimited computing power, so basically we've evolved past death, and they have these people called Scythes who kill people, and the last book in the series is fantastic. It's so well done. I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars. In the 3rd from the top list, we have The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. This is a grimdark fantasy novel. It is the sequel to The Poppy War. It's following a main character named Rin, who is ruthless. There's just fantastic action from the beginning to the end of this book. I just loved every second of this book. It was so well written. I really enjoyed it, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars. In the number 2 spot, we have Crown of Feathers by Nikki Palpreto. This is a debut novel. It's following 2 sisters who want to become Phoenix Riders, and this book just completely blew me away. Like, I wasn't expecting to love this book as much as I did, but I loved every second of this book. I read this book in one sitting. It's so fast-paced. I absolutely loved like the relationships and everything that happens in this book, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars. And in the number 1 spot for my favorite new release of this year, I didn't think it was fair because 2 books from this series came out in the same year, so I'm gonna put both of them in the number 1 spot, and that is The Wicked King and The Queen of Nothing by Holly Black. Folk of the Air trilogy just took me by storm this year. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did. It's a fantastic romance-fueled YA series that if you like that type of series, I definitely recommend. I just love how you're never safe in your characters in this series, which just makes me love it all the more. And I ended up giving both of these 5 stars. So that is all I have for you guys. Let me know down in the comments what are some of your favorite new releases of 2019. I hope you guys enjoyed watching. I plan on posting at least 4 videos a week in the month of December, so consider subscribing. If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up to support my channel. All social media links are in the description down below. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.